What is up, guys? We are back for episode 4 of the Building a Buzz podcast. I'm your host, Justin Buzzi. This episode, we go through some financial tips and business advice that I've learned as I've recently hit my first $1 million. That's right, $1 million. This is a huge milestone for me, and I hope to motivate you guys in hitting your goals of whatever they may be. So let's go. All right, guys. So like I said, this week we are going to be talking about my first million. Now, just to clarify, I have not paid myself $1 million. This is just as a company, how much money we have brought in. That doesn't take into consideration expenses and everything that comes along to it. That is just solely the amount of sales that we've had as a company as Get Up and Go Kayaking. So I just want to make that clear going into this so you guys kind of can understand, that these are all business tips more so than personal tips. But I think there'll be a little bit of crossover here, and hopefully you guys will have some financial tips as you're growing your business and as you reach that 1 million mark. I think there's a lot of important things that I wish that I had known along the way and potentially can help you guys out. So the first big thing here, I think, is that it's really, really important to have a good financial assistant or a good CPA or someone that can help you out with your finances. If you're bringing in a lot of money and if a lot of money is going out with expenses, it's going to get a little confusing if you try to use QuickBooks or some other software on your own. So I would highly suggest looking into hiring someone that knows a little bit more about the financial process of paying taxes, payroll taxes, federal taxes, all of these different things that you really have to be worried about when you're spending and when you're bringing in as much money as you are. So that's the first big tip. Make sure that you go to different people, get some quotes on their services, and then also pick their brain about their background and any experience that they have that might match up with what your business is or what your source of income is. And hopefully you can find someone that matches up with your needs really, really well, and they'll be able to give you suggestions along the way. And this might sound like an easy one, but you would be surprised. Speaking from experience, I had a really bad experience with a CPA who essentially told me I didn't owe taxes for the first year and a half of my business. I went over to a new CPA. He was like, "Hey, how have you been paying your taxes?" And I said, "Okay, well, I haven't because my previous CPA told me I didn't need to." Turns out I did. Had to reach out to the Florida Department of Revenue, had to go back, figure out how many taxes I in fact owed, which was a very large amount. And then also they, of course, tacked on penalties on top of that, which was a very large amount as well. Thankfully, since I was the one that reached out to the Department of Revenue, they waived those penalties, but just be very careful about who you use as a CPA and always ask questions. I think that was part of the reason that this kind of slid under the radar for me, was that I hadn't really asked many questions along the way. You kind of just assume that people know exactly what they're doing, but there's very small iterations of businesses and taxes and everything out there. So make sure that you ask as many questions as possible and just make sure that you're covered. I think, like I said, this should be a simple one, but for me, it was something that I wish I knew because it would have saved me a bunch of money, especially all at one time. They want you to pay that lump sum of cash as quick as you can. So for me, this would have saved me a lot of money and some headaches along the way. And another big thing that this helps out with is your monthly or quarterly profit and loss statements. They should be able to send you that information, and from that, you should really be able to tell what you're spending a lot of money on or what you're not spending a lot of money on, and be able to make those adjustments kind of based on what those expenses are. If there's something that you're spending way too much money on that you shouldn't be, obviously there's probably an opportunity for you to figure out a better way to save some money and hopefully lower that expense for the next month or the next quarter. And so the next thing for me that was important was figuring out a number that I wanted to pay myself monthly. This was a difficult one because I was in the process of trying to buy a house. So I, in fact, had to pay myself more than I really wanted to because I needed to show that my income was substantial enough to buy the house that I wanted to buy. But you really need to make sure that you are spending the right amount on income for yourself. You don't want to be spending a whole lot of taxes on payroll income. So if there's any expenses that you can use as a business expense, even though it might be a little bit of a crossover as a personal expense, use it as a business expense. Don't pay yourself the money and then pay whatever that expense is. You'd then be doubling taxes essentially. You'd be doing the tax when you get that money through the business, and then you would also be paying income tax on it or payroll tax on it when you pay yourself. So you got to be really careful here. Make sure to find an amount that makes sense for you. Figure out what all of your bills equal up to. Obviously, pay yourself that much and maybe a little bit more so you can save and invest along the way. Find some good things to invest in. Find a couple ways to save some money, and that'll really help out, especially when you're first getting started. And my next tip here is to potentially open a health savings account, or what they call an HSA. You can put up to $3,500 in an HSA every year. And if you don't use that money on health, you can save it every year and it's not taxable. So after a certain period of time, you can actually access that money and it will be essentially like a savings account, but you've not been taxed on that money. So it's a really cool way to save some extra money along the way, watch it add up. And then if you do ever need medical expenses, you should have a bunch of money in this HSA account that will allow you to pay off your medical expenses. So it's really twofold here. It helps you pay your medical bills, and then it also will save you money because you are not taxed on this HSA. So definitely look into it. Maybe talk to a provider or someone that can help you out with this, but just a cool, easy way to save an extra $3,500 every year. And another big one here, I think, is not being afraid to take some risks, right? So if you're having a lot of income and you have the opportunity to invest in something that might be a little bit riskier, look into it, do your research, and then try it. Don't waste a whole lot of money doing it, but put as much money into it as you can that you feel comfortable with. And don't be afraid if that number goes up or down a little bit. Especially if you're younger and you can do these riskier investments, feel free to try it. I'm getting my head into a SEP plan, a SEP IRA plan, and really trying to figure out what I should invest in right now. And that's one of the biggest things for me is finding ways that I can have my money work for me. And, the traditional bank account just doesn't offer the amount of interest that it should or that it used to. So you have to find these creative ways to be able to invest your money, maybe in a little bit riskier situation, but the hope is that the payout might be a bit higher than just leaving your money in a bank account where it's not really going to be working for you. And my next tip is to spend money on marketing and spend money on branding. These are two huge things that have helped me out along the way. I think a lot of people don't see the instant effect on spending money with branding or with marketing, so they really tend to stray away from it. But it's a long-term play, and if you really want to grow your company, grow your business, or whatever it is, you have to play the long-term game here. So spend some money on marketing, spend some money on branding, get yourself some really cool videos of whatever it is that you do, and put some money behind those videos online to hopefully increase your sales or whatever it may be. And most importantly, invest in your business and invest in your employees. If people that work for you, your employees, whoever they are, feel like they're a real part of the company and feel like they're financially valuable to your company, you'll see hopefully that they're going to want to work harder and go above and beyond every day when they're doing their job. And it's so helpful to just spend a little bit more money to make that happen. I think it shows them that you really appreciate them. And it also will show the customer, once your employees feel like they're really valued and a valued part of your company, it'll display to your customers. They'll be able to see that your employees are really valued, and that's just going to end up working for you hand in fist. So Word of mouth is huge, and it all starts with your employees. It all starts with the first conversation with the customer. So invest in your business, invest in your employees, and you will see that pay off. If you feel like you need to pay your employees as little as you can just so you can make a little bit more money, that's not the best way to look at this. You really need to see how you can spend some extra money on your employees to make them feel like they're valued. And for me, that was kind of coming up with an incentive program. So, in being in the service industry, we get a lot of reviews. And every 10 reviews that mentions any of my employees' name, I'll give them an incentive or a bonus where they can get a financial bonus from that. So just something little, that can show them that they're valued like that can really, really pay off. So see if there's anything in your business where maybe you could spend a little bit more money on incentivizing your employees or just showing them that you really care for them, and you'll see that work back for you in such a good way. And if you're anything like me, when you see the money coming in, it motivates you more and more to make more money. So, when I was younger, I was like, oh my gosh, when I make my first $1 million, I am going to just chill. I'm going to go on vacation. But no, that's not how I work. I see that million come in and I say, okay, how can we get 2 million even quicker or even better than the first million, right? So if you're anything like me, you'll feel the same way, even if it's that first 10,000, even if it's that first 100,000, whatever that number is, you should be really, really motivated to double that, to get to that number again, but even faster. So once you make that money, make yourself motivated by it and go out there and get the same amount, but in a quicker amount of time. So for me, I've hit my first million. I cannot wait to hit my second million, and I cannot wait to hit my first 10 million, and so on and so on. It really motivates me to go and work harder and figure out ways that I can save some money and also spend some money in more unique ways. So I'm really excited to figure out how I can get to that 2 million quicker. But I wanted to give you guys a couple quick tips that I've learned along the way that can hopefully save you some money and also encourage you to go and get it. I think that everyone should have a really big goal in mind and figure out how you can get to it, and use these tips and tricks along the way to make sure that you're not wasting money in ways that you shouldn't, but also you're making enough money in ways that you should. And my one last tip before I go is to always go above and beyond for your customer. Don't forget about them. They're the most important part of all of this. So make sure you go above and beyond when you can. It'll really pay off. Just spend a couple extra minutes going above and beyond. Do something a little bit extra, and you will see how this pays off so much. Word of mouth is bigger and bigger than it's ever been, and that is the way to completely wow your customers, is just by going above and beyond, because so many people don't do it that if you're the company that does, they will recommend you to all of their friends, all of their family, and so on. So don't be afraid, guys. Go get that first $1 million. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Building a Buzz podcast. I'm your host, Justin Buzzi. Have a great day.